All right, here's an interesting little problem that we've had for the last couple of years with anything that is CVA. CVA makes a great product. It shoots amazing. Their whole family, the Bagheera, Conus, all of their stuff that comes out is actually pretty good stuff. There is one problem with everything that comes out of BPI Outdoors Inc. So all their stuff is made in Spain, which is not the problem yet. Their machining processes are really interesting over there. So whenever they cut barrels and they put any of these scope bases, scope mounts, anything else like that, they don't clean out the cutting fluid. So then when you put the screws in, what you have happen on every brand new gun, now note that this is locked down, so every brand new gun, after a couple of rounds, this will happen. So if you're out shooting and you're out sighting your gun in, this is going to happen. So the only fix for this is to literally take your scope base off, and you can't get to the scope base unless you take off, obviously, your scope. So you take off your scope, then you have to typically re-bore sight it and then go out and reshoot the whole thing. You have to clean the holes out typically with some kind of an alcohol-based cleaner, something that will kind of either eat or destroy any of the cutting fluid in there. Then you need to apply probably I usually use blue Loctite so that you can break it free if you need to, so that you'll never ever have this issue again. And then you also need to lock those screws into the appropriate inch pounds. The other issue with most of these CVAs, and I was told this was kind of fixed, is the fact that on this one we put a thread protector, which is obviously it's European, so it's 18 by 1, and they're a little hard to find. I found one manufacturer that actually makes these, but their compensator on the end of these things is so obnoxious that you literally can't hear. I wanted to understand how bad the sound and everything was, and after firing one round at the beginning of this week, my ears are still ringing from this product. So my advice is take off the compensator. Typically most guys who shoot this gun, it is a very accurate gun. It has beautiful space in here, which allows for the barrel to oscillate or rotate in here as the round is traveling down. So there's plenty of room for the barrel whip on this. But again, the issues with this gun are very clear. If you buy a gun from CVA, whether it's a muzzleloader or anything else that has one of their CVA barrels on there, the first thing I do is I'd rip off the scope or the scope mounts, so you don't have this problem and have to spend a lot of time re-zeroing the gun or anything else. All right, and then the other thing on their 450s is get rid of that compensator. It's junk. It doesn't really do a whole lot for mitigating recoil, but it does make the gun extremely loud. So if you're out there shooting, hunting, you're not going to be able to hear probably for at least a week unless you are wearing pretty heavy-duty ear protection. All right, once again, this is Chris Weldon with Weldon Arms. Thanks for watching. All right, so we loosened all 6 screws, which is the only way to get the scope rings off from the scope base. And as soon as I turn this over, you can see that there is oil all over the underside of these scope rings, which is kind of sad and contrary to what I was told last week when I called CVA. If we look at the scope base, you can also see there is cutting fluid all over. The other interesting thing is this is a 6-hole base, and there are only 4 holes, not all 6 cut into this, which is, I guess, not really kind of disturbing, but you kind of wonder why they wouldn't have done this, since there isn't really kind of any pillaring to that. And you can see that this is extremely loose. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a number 15, T15 screwdriver, and I'm going to loosen these holes. I'm going to take these screws out of these holes, and we're going to actually take a look. There's no tension on these screws at all. So I mean, they're loose, and you can kind of see there's some cutting fluid there. The screws are awfully juicy, and they shouldn't be. These things should be kind of at least torqued down to maybe 26 inch-pounds or so, And there is no such business. I mean, these are just, my 2.5-year-old son could probably loosen these himself. I mean, they're that easy peasy. So we've loosened all of the, and look at that. Look at that little coat of oil, all cutting fluid all the way around that thing. I mean, it is literally just kind of soaked. And then we'll kind of take a look and we can kind of see the base is also soaked in, look at that, soaked in cutting fluid. And so the reason these screw bases aren't holding is because they're not, even if they blew out the cutting oil on these things, it would be much better, and then just chase them with alcohol. So now what I have to do is, obviously I have to bring the gun back in the shop. I have to clean this, and then I have to remount and re-sight in the gun, because now I've completely moved everything on this. So I'm just not sure why they do this way.